Hello, human peoples. You're listening to the podcast network of Gamefully Unemployed. To support us and gain access to great exclusive podcasts like Fox Mulder is a Maniac, Tom and Jeff Watch Batman, Star Trek The Next Futurama, and our latest show, Spiel Boys, head over to patreon.com/gamefullyunemployed. We do game streaming, movie nights with our patrons every Friday night, and you can even commission your own podcast about anything you want. Literally anything, within reason, and we have to do it. You are quite frankly out of excuses not to go visit patreon.com/gamefullyunemployed. That's patreon.com/GAMEFULLY unemployed, which is spelled like it sounds. Movies. Visitors from beyond the stars, coming down to share their knowledge with us.
And their little bugs.
And their little squiddy, little buggies that they keep in their necks.
Hi, everybody.
Hello, everyone.
My name is David Bell.
My name is Tom Ryman.
And we just watched No One Will Save You.
Boy, is that wisdom we can all use.
Except for me. Everybody saves me.
Oh, that's true, yeah. Everybody, you're like a panda, Dave.
Yeah.
Everybody stops what they're doing to make sure you're all right.
Exactly. Hi, everyone.
Hello.
We did that part already. I get my brain mixed up where I'm like, who's this podcast brought to you by? And I'm like, wait,
it's not. It's just a We Just Watched. It's just our normal We Just Watched, Dave.
There were so many movies we could have watched.
Listen.
Well, there was one movie. There was The Creator.
There was The Creator. Yeah.
And then there was this movie.
Isn't there a Saw or a Saw next? I don't know.
Yeah, there's going to be a Saw. And I don't think we're going to have time to cover it.
No, we're not going to cover it. We have so much to cover in the next coming weeks.
That the When Evil Lurks by the Terrified guy, I don't think we'll be able to cover that. There's too much.
Man, we'll have to squeeze that in. Maybe we'll do that for like our end of year roundup this year.
We could also do it in November because there's some free slots.
Listen,
and like when has that stopped? When has it stopped us to do like a horror movie out of October? You know what I mean?
Never.
Where it's like
literally never.
And so we had The Creator, but this got internet buzz. This is on Hulu. This it's a home invasion movie from aliens. I think for a lot of people it just came out of nowhere.
Kind of
and then
a
got
home
a lot of
invasion
buzz.
movie. But yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't hear about this until it started getting buzz, unless we covered it on Hypecast and I just completely forgot about it.
So I saw the trailer, but Hypecast rules.
That's
we didn't
right.
cover
Yeah, we
it
were
because it
strike
wasn't-
casting.
Yeah. This has what's her name? Booksmart. It's got Booksmart in it.
Caitlin Deaver.
And it's got zero dialogue. Well,
there is one line.
It's got limited dialogue. It's almost a silent. Well, not silent. It's almost a non-talking.
There's no dialogue.
Film.
There is a single line of dialogue.
Yeah, and everybody
it's 4
was,
words, or it's 3 words.
Yeah,
rather.
everybody was really into it, and so we covered it. Tom, what did you think of No One Will Save You?
I liked it. I feel like I really love how unpredictable it is. I feel like it loses steam a little bit in the middle. But ultimately, overall, I think this was really impressive. I think it was impressive, and I enjoyed it. I thought it was cool. I thought it was well executed for what it is.
Well executed is the good word, because I thought this movie was okay. And I actually think the script is terrible.
Yeah,
I think it's a bad script.
I wanted to talk about that. The script page that has been circulating on social media right now is the writer-director Brian Duffield, I believe is his name.
Sure.
I better you should double check that while I'm telling the story.
I didn't look it up because I don't have good things to say about this movie, and I feel bad because there's nothing like it's a fairly indie movie. It's not that indie, obviously.
It's not that indie.
Filled with CGI.
There's lots of effects in it.
Yeah, I would actually argue this film is probably bigger studio film than it lets on.
It's a mid-budget film.
Yeah. And I just I want that to succeed, but ultimately I kind of this had very little for me, and I kind of don't understand the buzz around it, or rather I want to talk about that, but go on.
Yeah,
sorry.
so the script page that was circulating is the writer-director has a unique way of writing his scripts, apparently, or at least this script, where there was a page circulating where it's a scene in the movie where the main character, whose name is Bryn, is about to get a little boogans implanted in her neck that's going to control her mind from this alien. And the script page is written like stream of consciousness. That's just like, it's an alien, it's an alien, it's an alien, like The Shining, like all work and no play.
Right.
And then in the middle of that, he fills up the page with that. And then in the middle of that, he'll put the actual scene directions where it's like the thing's opening its mouth. Oh my God, there's tentacles. Oh my God, the thing's opening its mouth. There's tentacles coming out. And people were circulating this as like some fabulous piece of art, which, okay, like I did see a few people point out, like, you can only write a script like this if you know you're going to shoot it.
Yeah, or you have to earn it.
Yeah.
Because like there is something to said about being creative and writing your script, but if the script isn't good enough, then it kind of just distract. Like if
Sure.
you're not enjoying it, and then that page shows up, you're like, Christ,
Right.
Close
Sure.
this script.
Sure, but I've also seen people like, well, this is a good way to, how readers read, X number of scripts, so many scripts,
Yes.
and they all blend together. So like writing it in a way like this is a good way to make it stick out. But like Dave said, you do kind of have to earn it. But the other thing I wanted to point out is the scene that this page that was getting all this love, the actual scene, the way this man shot the scene that he wrote is the most dull,
Yep.
boring scare in the entire movie.
Agreed. That's so that I'm glad you brought up that page, because I think that page is a metaphor for why people seem to like this movie. Is that it's making a lot of choices to sort of cover up the fact that it's fairly mid. And then people are like, oh my God, it's so good. And it's like, is it though? It's kind of not a great story. So I want to talk about the movie Sergeant Bilko for a second.
Of course. Yeah, always.
Yeah. In the movie Sergeant Bilko, there's a gag where he pays two boxers to take a dive in the same match. So it's a boxing match of two boxers both trying to lose. And that's
Neither one
right?
wants to hit each other. Yeah.
Yeah, and they're circling. That's basically this movie, because this movie, we've talked about home invasion or the escape genre, right? You got to get out. And I want to talk about a movie like Green Room. Green Room is that genre, right? You're in this literal green room. You have to get out. What does that movie do that makes it good? And one of the things I'll point out it does is it murders people, right? No, you're not quite sure who's going to make it out because there's like a bunch of them.
It escalates in a different way.
Yeah.
It escalates in a way that raises the stakes. This movie escalates in more of a WTF factor, where it's like, and it's the thing that I thought that I appreciated about it. It's the thing that I liked about the movie, is that it's hard to predict where it's going to go. But consequently, it does kind of feel rambling in that way. Anyway.
Right. It's also hard. I actually found it very repetitive. So, because what I'm getting at is that when you have a survival escape horror with just one character, it's know tough. That they're not going to die.
At least not until the end.
You're right. And you know that they're not going to get away. So a lot of this movie is there's like 3 scenes where alien comes in, she hides behind something. They do the raptor scene, but worse because it's not Spielberg. They do her covering her mouth while hiding something and an alien's behind her. The alien finds her and does nothing. Like a lot of this movie, the alien will find her and then just sort of like stop and she'll run away. And the reason why it can be unpredictable, or the reason why it happens, is because we ultimately don't know what the aliens want in any given moment.
What they're doing.
So the screenwriter just gets to make them do whatever's most convenient for
There
him.
were several moments where there's a couple of different types of alien. It's not all just one alien. There's like the standard gray, then there's like a little dog gremlin alien, then there's like a big like mid-sized sedan alien, and then there's like a Tyrannosaurus alien.
Yeah.
And they're all
neat.
Sure, they're okay. I mean, they're all the same Patrick Tatopoulos design after the first
right.
one. They're all just the spider-legged thing. But like they're also so bestial that like it kept Independence Day kind of bugged me with this as well, but I guess I don't know. It's where you're trying to make the aliens into scary monsters, but they also have to be masters of technology and intergalactic travel. So it's like there's one point where she tricks this beast into getting itself stuck inside her Subaru Outback so that she can then set it on fire and kill it. And it's like, how did this thing travel the stars?
Yeah.
It got stuck in a station wagon.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because that, I think, is one of the other fundamental problems with this movie, is that page. Again, going back to that page from the script. I read that page before seeing this movie.
Same.
And reading that page, I was like, ooh, is this going to be like really heady and weird? It's just monsters. And what I mean by that is, like, when you're dealing with aliens you can get really creative with. They can essentially be ghosts or phantoms. You can do some 4-dimensional shit. You can do some crazy stuff with aliens, because you can say, like, their technology is so advanced that it seems horrifying.
It's magic. Yeah.
Yeah. But the most they do is that she gets like a memory implanted by the little Boogan, and you know instantly that that's what's happening. That's as heady as it gets, and it's baseline shit. And so, like, it was kind of disappointing to me that it was like, oh, it's going to be alien home invasion, and then it was just them going brrr and running at her, and I'm like, really? This could be anybody. This could be humans.
Yeah.
Like, it's so. And then again, sometimes, like, there's the scene in the basement where the alien uses telekinesis to grab the picture and just stare at it. And then she runs upstairs, and the next alien just pounces on her like an animal, like you're describing. So it's like, sometimes they're an animal who is like, I'm just going to get you. Sometimes they're like curious, and again, it's whatever the screenwriter needs to happen, because most of this movie is just her. It's two things have to happen. One, she has to constantly be getting away from the aliens. And two, she has to constantly be trapped. And those two things are kind of against each other, to the point that there's a scene, and this scene baffles me because it's so easily fixable. So they do this thing where they make her a pariah.
Yes.
And it's like, cool idea. No one will save you. I get it. In fact, the first 9 minutes of this movie, I think, is great narratively. The aliens don't come until 9 minutes, and they explain everything you need to know. And I was like, good job. Like, I was with this movie.
Yeah, it was real efficient.
Yeah, my notes to this movie was just like, okay, that's cool. And then, like, okay, first encounter, that's all right. That's all right. Like, assuming they were going to do other things. And then after that, it was like, they just keep doing this again and again.
Right, when she goes back to her house, I laughed.
Yeah, because what happens is and this is, I think, straight up like the Happening M. Night Shyamalan level of, like, why aren't people laughing at this? She goes into the town because she kills an alien, and it's in her house, this gray alien. And she doesn't go into the town right away. My first notes there was like, okay, go. She tries her car and it doesn't work. And then she takes a shower. And it was like, just go, right? Like, just go? Mm-hmm. You killed an alien? Finally, she rides her bike into town. And she's such a pariah. She goes into the police station, and clearly the chief of police is, we can get into the backstory, but she killed a little girl when she was young. Not too little, like teenagers. And it was clearly like the daughter of the chief of police. And she goes in, and like the chief of police and his wife are there, and the wife spits in her face and leaves. And then the other cops look uncomfortable. And then she doesn't report the alien because of that. And there is no level of being a pariah that excuses that, right? Like, there's nothing they could have done in that moment, save for the cops, like, trying to kill her, that made me go, yeah, you were right not to report the alien that you found. Like, there is nothing you can do in that scene to make that plausible to me. Her like, oh, but I'm a pariah. It's like, no, there's nothing. I can't think of any level of that would make you not go, I found an alien. You need to come to my house. You could even say, I have a home intruder.
Dave.
Like, it's just,
think about who she is and what she's about to tell them.
I understand that, but, like, you could still say there's a home invasion. There's just it just won't work. And so what you're saying, think about who she is and what she's going to tell them. That's the second problem, is that I think this movie needed dialogue.
It did.
I think they
it could have used dialogue. They did the no dialogue thing to be like, look at me. And it mostly works, but, like, there are stretches where it's like somebody needs to say fucking something.
Just like the way you're boxed in when you're doing a home invasion, right? When you're like, they can't ever leave. you limiting yourself to no dialogue, you have to be able to do that smartly. And it felt like they gave themselves a limitation and then failed at the limitation.
Well,
and I was
like
thinking,
you said, the first 9 minutes were really good.
Yeah. And it's
but that's 9 minutes, not a feature.
Right. And you take into account, there's no I can't think of any artistic or thematic reason to have no dialogue in this movie.
Because she's an outcast and doesn't get to speak to anybody. So like the only conversations she has are either with no one or inside her own head.
Yeah, I guess that's fair.
Yeah.
But it still wasn't good enough because then there were so many scenes where it's like, just say something. But because you're in a film with no dialogue, you can't. So it's not like there's she has the capability to speak. And so like it felt like there were a few moments where she's limited, where she's like, I can't speak because the movie won't let me. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Where it's like, yeah, anybody would speak in these moments, but since they're like, they decided to do this, and I think they also decided to do this because it got hype. Because people were like, oh my God, no dialogue. That's so cool. Just like that page, that script page. They're doing these things where they're like, this will be cool, but it's not ultimately good enough.
Reading the page and then seeing the scene was like, oh, this is what you did with that?
Right. It's a lot of glitz. It's a lot of, hey, look at this. But like, there's not much there ultimately. And like I was thinking about that scene where she goes into town. She in the next scene sees that the aliens are body snatching people. Just have her learn that in the town, and then you solve the problem, right? Or just have the town be like empty. Like there are so many ways to show that no one will save her. There's a million ways to get her back to her house. Having the police chief's wife spit on her and everybody look uncomfortable. That's not it. And then she gets on a bus in disguise. She like puts on a hat and she decides the next thing she should do is just get out of town. That is so weird to me. And then the fact that she wore a disguise, it seemed like. Did you get like she's wearing like a hat and glasses?
Yeah, she doesn't want to be noticed.
It's just weird because it's just like.
Yeah, I mean, I guess she got spit on earlier. Like she killed a little girl in this town and everybody hates her.
Yeah, it wasn't enough for me. And then the fact that her next thing to do is just get on a bus and leave and not like approach anyone about this. It was like, those are really the two.
That was insane. Like that decision was really, really extreme and not earned by what we saw.
That's what I mean. Like I cackled when
she's leaving her whole house behind.
Yeah.
Like you've shown us that she is all but an agoraphobe. And she's leaving her house behind. Okay.
Right. And like for all she knows, there's no more aliens.
Right. That's how she's behaving at this point. That like when she goes into town to report it at the police station, right. Which I actually think makes sense. But anyway.
I don't think it makes sense. I think she had. There's just for me there was no level of shunness to not report that your home was invaded and you stabbed an alien. To not bring that, like, to not do something more about that. Well, and then again, it just felt like I could feel the screenwriter having to come up with it.
She's also not a rational person.
Yeah, I guess.
I mean, she killed a little girl for very little reason, as we see, and then, of course, the ending of the film.
Right, and I don't think that was earned with her behavior.
No, it wasn't, because we don't know any of this at the time.
Exactly, because there's no fucking dialogue, and there's no way to really flesh out her character in a way where it like that's the thing is by not giving her dialogue, she's sort of a blank slate too, and like the thing about home invasion movies is they're kind of made for audiences to go, what would I do in this situation, right? And by making your character without dialogue, you're putting that even more on them, right? Because you learn even less about the character. So the audience starts filling in the blanks. They start seeing themselves. And since we don't know what she did or if she's like a good person, we're like, that is the thing. I was just sitting there and going like, what would I do? She's this blank slate. I thought the movie wanted that because they're making her kind of a blank slate without dialogue to make her like this every person in a way. And so having her do like those two things is just like, well, that's dumb. That's the official moment the movie I was just like, okay, I think this movie might not be good. Because everything up until that point I was like, okay, it's all right so far. You know, like this could get really, really good. And then after that I lost faith completely. And then the movie never won it back ultimately. Because literally 3 times they do the alien looking around, be real quiet thing. And when it's not that, it's a beam of light coming down. And they just sort of like switch those two things up for an hour and 20 minutes of the movie until she gets abducted or till she gets the little squid billy in her. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like it was just those two things over and over.
It was a lot of wheel spinning in when she gets back to the house for sure.
Yeah.
I was impressed with, like, I didn't expect it to ever leave the house. I thought it was just going to be a standard home invasion movie. So when she like leaves and goes to town and tries to get out of town and has to get back, you know, is in the forest. And then she has this whole fucking adventure that she goes on that I was not expecting. And I think that's the part of the film that I enjoyed. Like I liked that I couldn't guess what the next scene was going to be. Like it didn't. Oh, see,
I was just like, she's gonna go home. She's gonna go back home. That was my thought. Is like, oh, the screenwriter's doing the thing. The question was, why don't you leave, right? And so every one of these movies has to be answered. And the moment she didn't talk to the police, I was like, oh, they have to write reasons for her to stay now. Like it was such a clear reason for her to not get help that I knew when she got on the bus, I was like, the bus will be attacked. Because obviously, like what else could happen? They're not going to let her leave the town.
Right.
So it's like the bus will be attacked. And when they showed it driving back into the country, like towards her house, I was like, oh, and she's going to run home. Like, I don't know. That felt very clear to me because I knew what the movie was trying to do at that point, right? Which is herd her back home.
Sure.
That's all. But like, I do appreciate that they added new elements, you know, because at a certain point you had to, right?
You have to, yeah. You can't keep it. I think it made a good faith effort to get around that problem of home invasion movies that you're talking about, where it ends up becoming very obvious to the audience that it's just the characters fighting the screenwriter. Where like in Don't Breathe, where they have to come up with reasons why they can't simply open a window and climb out. Like, right. So they were trying to avoid that by taking it in different places, like her going to try to report it, getting on a bus, getting lost in the woods, having this experience where she's getting chased by body snatchers. I was coming into it thinking it was going to be just like Don't Breathe entirely within this one house. So when it expands outward, I thought I was impressed with that, or maybe not impressed with it, but that's what I liked about it, was that it didn't stay in one place. It didn't stay with one idea for too long before moving to another one. It was like, well, what about this? This is happening now.
What's funny is that I think that's the part I would have changed. If I was writing this, I would have just made a fucking force field or something around her. I would just, because the problem with that is they're making it entirely character based, like why, or like situational. You know what I mean? Where it's like Don't Breathe literally has a scene where someone jumps out a window and falls back into the house through a skylight.
Yep.
And it's like, oh, the writer had to magically put a skylight there. And so like this, I felt like had a very simple idea, which is what if she went into town and everybody was already sheltering in place? What if just no one was there? What if the buses weren't working and she realized like, I can't get anywhere? What would you do in that situation? You'd go back home, right? Like that's the only thing you could do in that situation. You'd grab some supplies and go back home because you'd realize like no one will save me. No one's around. And I was just like, why didn't they just do that? You know, like, why didn't they just show, yeah, you're trapped. Like it's a much easier way to trap her of because just having
I think the writer director was going for the idea of being a pariah as it relates to the ending of the film, which we haven't discussed yet.
Yeah, they wanted to hammer that in, how much of a pariah she was. That is a problem because at the end of the film, you kind of don't like her.
Yes, you're not. I don't think you're supposed to. It's supposed to be a Twilight Zone ending.
Right. It's supposed to be like this ironic twist, and I don't think that was earned either, honestly, that tone and that twist, because I do want to talk about that.
I don't think we're not, because there's no dialogue and because we have to get all of this information about her. I don't know if that necessarily is because of that, but it just wasn't. I guess maybe it just wasn't handled well enough. But anyway, we're supposed to dislike her, or at least feel the weight of that decision more, and we just don't, because we don't learn anything about her really until that moment when the aliens like touch her head and they're like, we're gonna peek inside your memories to make it easier for the audience.
I think I know. Here's why I think it was completely unearned, and it wanted to be so clever, and it wasn't. And it's because the other side of this, which I mentioned, was the aliens. And I felt like the aliens, it was the opposite of finding the screenwriter. They would stop and go, the screenplay says we can't get her now. There were so many moments where like they would jump out at her and then she'd run and they would like walk. And then other moments where they would like go fast. They would try to abduct her and then they wouldn't. Like they tried to beam her up once, and then they gave up, and then the beam hits her a second time, and then they put the thing in her mouth, and then she just rips it out, and I was like, oh, can everybody do that? That seemed really easy, you know? Like, why isn't everybody else having that issue? Huh, that was so easy. And they just keep like, oh, we're going to get you. Nah, we're not going to get you. Oh, we're going to get you. And to the point where they finally abduct her, and I remember going like, oh, they got her. They got her. Finally, the movie can actually, like I said in my notes, like this should have happened halfway through the movie, because they clearly didn't have anything else up until this point. It was it felt like a haunted house where they're like, I'm going to get you, but I can't legally touch you.
Yeah, pretty much. I was sort of hoping for that. The first time she gets hit with the beam, I was like, oh shit, is like the next part of this movie going to be her in the spaceship?
I know. And that's what I wanted. I was like, yes, good.
Because that was because that was when I was on board with the movie. Like it kind of had lost me for a little bit in the middle, where it just became her running away from Boogans, who would, like you were saying, they like the little dog one is, we see it sneaking up behind her when she's not looking at it, but as soon as she sees it, then it starts running. It's like, dude, why didn't you just sprint and grab her when she didn't see you?
And are you trying to kill her?
Yeah, are you doing this to be spooky for yourselves?
Yeah.
So there was a lot of that, but like when it got back to this part, because there had been so much, like she's already gone into town, then we have the bus, and then now she's in the forest, and so I was like back with the movie thinking, oh man, are we going to get into the spaceship? Oh man, are we going to get to the aliens' fucking planet? Because at that point, like that's how like unpredictable the movie felt to me.
Right. And what happens when she finally gets abducted, and this goes into the ending, is the aliens probe her mind. And they all look at each other. They say stuff in a language we can't hear. And they send her back untouched. And the reason, so the ending, the big twist ending, is she's now living amongst the aliens as pod people, and she likes her life better. So they're all like friendly neighbors now. And so it's supposed to be this like Twilight Zone ironic twist where it's like everything's okay. And then it like clearly they're all pod people and there's aliens. The problem is, why did the aliens do that?
There's no reason.
There's no reason. And that's the problem. Is the aliens, when they all talk to each other, they said, so I just read the screenplay and it says this needs to happen, so let's do it. That's why aliens just do whatever the screenwriter needed them to do, and they cover it up by being like, they're aliens. Who knows what they're doing? And it's like, no, I need to know what they're doing, because otherwise this isn't clever. It's just random.
They're nude monsters, but also they're masters of technology.
Yeah. And again, why say, let's leave this one for fun? Just because.
I feel like when I was watching it, like what I literally thought was like they were saying to each other, I just read this one. She's too sad. This one's too sad. Just put her back.
Right. Yeah.
This one's way too sad.
Yeah, there's no and then the idea that like her memories are particularly unique to these aliens, I'm like, you are abducting everyone. And you're telling me this is the one that stands out? This like 20-something-year-old? I like, it's just like, no. Like, why? Like the moment they pick up a war veteran, they'd look at their memories and go like, Jesus Christ.
Yeah, we got to keep this one. Yeah.
Yeah, like it's just so arbitrary, and it's just because she's our main character, and that's what the screenwriter needed to happen. and it's so sweaty and like unearned. And then at the end, it's like, look, pretty clever, huh? And it's like, no, not at all. This movie ultimately to me felt like a visual effects reel that went too long. Like it felt like someone's going, look what I can make. Well, and the story was secondary because, like, again, the aliens looked good. It was a cool twist on the Greys a little bit. As you pointed out, they're just sort of the same monster we've seen a million times. But I liked how they moved, you know, like almost like the stop motion.
Their
movement.
Little finger toes. No little finger toes.
Like, and so to me, it felt like a visual effects artist just being like, look what I can do. Look how I can shoot this scene, kind of like Spielberg did. Not really like he did, but kind of like. But that's what it felt like.
I don't think it's really trying to mimic Spielberg.
Well, it does. It's just doing It's the raptor scene over.
Yeah.
That's all.
Yeah.
And so like, to me, it felt like this should have been a short film that gets someone a later job. Like that's what it may have
been.
Yeah, it may have been because there just wasn't much beyond. This looks cool, right? And like my answer is like, yeah, it does. Like honestly, it did. There's a lot of scenes didn't look like particularly original or mind blowing, but like when the beam comes down, the people freeze in place. It looked cool. Yeah, it absolutely looked cool.
Yeah,
it's a cool looking movie. Structurally, it hits the mark. You know, it gets us into it fast. It does the things it's supposed to do. It's short. I just didn't see any substance at all in the actual movie. And there's a lot of like the first thing that happens, the phone like makes that noise and the fridge door opens. Why?
I don't know.
Like, yeah, exactly. There's a lot of that, right? There's a lot of, why did that happen? I don't know. It was neat, right? It was neat.
Alien blasts her, does a no-look wall blast to her. Like without turning around, it sends her through a wall, and then doesn't like immediately go check and see what it just threw through a wall.
Again, yeah, it does that a lot. Where the alien,
it gives her plenty of time to recover and get back up and escape.
Yeah, and that's a big problem. Is I feel like, much like Home Invasion makes you go, "How are you going to get out of this?" The way the aliens are acting, you have to ask, "What are they doing?" Because that's what the movie wants us to think, right? By making them act really erratic and mysterious, you sitting there going like, what are they doing? And the answer should be not really clever.
Way. It's not in a good way. Like, it's not like, man, what could they possibly be doing? At some point, it gets to, what are they doing?
Right, because the thing is, if they did answer that in a satisfying way, I'd be like, oh, that's so cool how they set that up. But ultimately, they're just trying to scare her. It seems like Slender Man problem, right?
Yeah,
it's just like
keeps getting her and then letting her go.
Yeah,
I think this is. I'm still on this movie's side. Like, I think it's a great idea. I want more great ideas to exist. Even if he didn't pull it off completely. It's a mid-budget movie. We need more of those. It's not like everything else, which I like. I mean, it is in some spots, but like I like that it tried things that normally you'd hear and be like, that sounds like it's going to be a fucking disaster. And to be fair, you think that most of it was a disaster, but a lot of people didn't. Like, this movie's connecting with a lot of people. I think I like the ending. Like, even though it's not really earned, like you said, it's not completely earned. I do like that this movie wasn't scared to take this main character that we've been sort of with the entire movie, and you've been able to put whatever, for the most part, whatever you want to on her, because like you said, she's mostly an audience proxy. And then to have her do like a totally demented thing in the end, where she's just living with these mannequins as her playthings, essentially. I appreciate that this movie did so many things that aren't what every other shitty horror movie does. Like, I like that it took chances, and I like that it had an idea that was unique and interesting, and, you know, maybe not successful in every part of the execution, but I like the fact that this was a weird, unique idea that sounds unworkable. It's a home invasion movie with a single character and there's no dialogue. And and pulled off a movie that's getting a lot of buzz that I thought was, for the most part, I like it. So like I recognize everything that you're saying as problems, but I think the stuff that I'm still on this movie side. I recognize that a lot of it is untapped potential. A lot of this movie had a lot of potential that it didn't realize, but I think that the potential that it did manage to realize is worth watching. I think this. It's not. Yeah, I'm more on this movie side than I'm against it. I don't want to poo-poo this movie.
I have a more cynical view of this movie because it's 20th Century Studios.
Sure,
it's a Disney film. It was made by someone who is a producer and has been doing stuff. He did Divergent series. He's a studio writer and producer, and it felt to me like you're like that to say, like, I'm not saying that it was made cynically. I'm sure it was made by people who are trying to make a good thing, but ultimately it felt like I want more original films. I want more unique films. To me, this felt like finding a puddle of water in the desert, which is that I was just like, when I saw the hype and then I watched the film, I'm like, man, the bar is low.
It is.
Like, that was my feeling.
It is.
Of like, it felt like it's a Disney Hulu production that is an alien invasion CGI fest. That I kind of had the same thing with that the John Krasinski one, where I'm like, this is very mid.
Whatever it was
like,
called.
It's
A Quiet Place.
It's A Quiet Place, where it's like, it's kind of a mid film, and honestly, it doesn't make much sense when you watch it. But people were like, this is amazing. And mostly it's because I think just people are starving for stories that aren't superheroes or aren't like, where it's like, something fucking an original sci-fi. And it's
something
like,
that's different.
Yeah. And it just feels like in another time, these weren't films that people would have been this excited for.
No, I feel like this would be mostly forgotten. I feel like this would be like a nick of time.
I think it will be. Yeah, I think this film will be mostly forgotten.
Oh yeah.
I think this movie harnessed a lot of good hype. It ultimately was a good choice to have no dialogue, right? Because that's what put it on the map. Like, that's the thing. Again, it's very flashy and it succeeds.
It makes a big show of making the choices that it makes, which I don't love. But
right, people were saying, like, why didn't this go out in theaters? I think that was an actual strategy.
A smart move. This would have bombed in theaters. This would have died.
Yes. I think that was a strategy to take this and like really ramp it up the hype so that people go on Hulu and they watch Hulu. Like, it felt like it was a strategic move.
Yeah.
It ultimately, like my feeling of this is like, again, it's so cynical, but like, it feels like this person is going to do a Star Wars or something. You know what I mean? And then people are going to be like, why did that suck? And it's like, I mean, they like, it just, it's sort of everybody trying to be J.J. Abrams and stuff, where it's like, this just feels like someone auditioning for a cushy job, if that makes sense to me.
Yeah,
but
to a degree,
like,
for sure.
Yeah, because it feels like it was like it was made to be marketed and hyped, but like there wasn't enough actual care in the story.
The actual movie isn't really that memorable.
No, and the story isn't that amazing, and like what it means, the intent isn't really
what it's saying
great.
Isn't terribly profound or anything. Like, I get it. I understand what you're saying.
Yeah, and I think maybe a lot of people listening are like, yeah, but I enjoyed it. I had fun. And like, yeah, that's fine. Like, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's just like it wanted to be fun and people had fun, and I shouldn't be such a grump about it, such a crab. But I did not have fun because I felt like I saw every step of this movie. Like, I was just like seeing the writing room the whole time of like, all right, they have to solve this problem. How are they going to do it? And then every time they'd solve the problem, I'd go, well, that wasn't a good way to solve that problem. Like, it felt like it was just very sweaty and mid in terms of doing the actual story to me. And like the writing just felt so forced, and so obvious ultimately for a lot of the choices they were making. And it just like, I don't know. Again, the haunted house analogy, it was like a bad haunted house to me, where I was like, I see all of the scares coming. I see all the things, and I've seen it before, but better. Like that was, for at one point, that page that you're talking about that's explaining, like, when I read that page, I was like, oh, that's going to be some really gnarly stuff. It's just like a CGI squid. And
right,
I was thinking about a movie like
a regular ass CGI gray alien face looking directly at the camera, and its tiny mouth opens, and this little CGI booger with noodles on it comes out of his mouth, and that's it. It's all just a digital effect. It's the most mid scene. And
I couldn't help but think about the movie The Thing, about people trapped with an alien, which is, I think it's fair to compare the two considering it's the same plot. I'm like, man, that's so much better.
Really
and
is.
I know that, and it took the same premise, and it, like, why are they trapped? Put them in the Arctic. Bam. That reason's done. What is the alien? Let's do something people haven't seen. Even though that movie is a remake, it was doing shit that people hadn't seen. It was like, let's make aliens monsters. This makes aliens monsters too, but it makes them like the Hollywood mid J.J. Abrams monsters. And it's like, I don't know, man, make them fucking, like, if this movie was trying to be The Thing, I would probably like it more, because it's like, I can tell you're trying to be The Thing, but, The Thing is great.
Yeah.
It just felt like it was trying to be so mid, like, standard, like, just like I've seen it a million fucking times, like, that's all. Like, someone hiding from aliens in the basement. It's like, nah, go watch War of the Worlds with Spielberg. They have a better version of that sequence, right?
I mean, yeah. Signs.
Signs
is
I
a
kept
better
thinking
film
of
than
Signs.
this.
Yeah. And
in
so,
my
like,
opinion.
That's what it is like, this was fine. Like, I didn't hate this movie, but I got
no.
I
liked
the
this
more
movie.
I thought about it, which is like, ultimately I was like, it's very mid. And I've seen everything it's did better and other things. So I don't know. I don't know, man.
Fair.
Yeah. I didn't hate it. I didn't have
It sounds like you hated it, Dave.
Well, that's what's interesting about it, is I didn't hate it when I watched it. It's more that I hate it because it was so middle of the road that I hated it. Does that make sense? Where it's like, this wasn't so bad that it was fun, and it wasn't amazing. So I was just like, yeah, that's a movie. Like, you made a mid movie that's going to be forgettable. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Aliens.
Sergeant Bilko. Again, I will say the actress was great. Like, it's got to be any actor's dream, right?
Oh yeah.
I like I said, I like the first 9 minutes. I like that she seems to live like a retired author. She's like sitting by the lake writing letters.
Yeah. Making model houses, sewing her own dresses.
This movie, it's really funny. The first 9 minutes, I think, are great. And that's when the aliens don't show up, because they establish a lot. They establish, like, okay, her mom, or she's by a grave. She's a pariah. They do that without saying anything. And so, like, and then the first shot where, like, the establishing shot slowly descends on her, and where shit's getting real. Like, the movie did a very good job at all those things.
Mm-hmm.
It's the director is competent. The director could make something amazing after this, for all I know.
Yeah,
because it's very well made, but it's not like
the gap between that page and that scene on film, though, really. And he wrote that page, so it's
I know.
like, was this what you had in your mind?
Yeah, that's the thing. Is like, nothing about this makes me go like, oh my god, this director is incredible. Like, this is the next Jordan Peele or something. But I look at this and I go, I bet they could make a good Star Wars. And I think that's what they want us to think. Like, I'm honestly think that's what this director is trying to say.
Yeah, Star Wars edition.
Is like,
that's
the
theme of my film is I'd like to make a Star Wars movie and be rich.
Yeah, I can make a competent blockbuster film and do a few things that will, like, stand out. I'll stick a oneer in my Star Wars. I can do that. And it's like, you sure will. And so, like, I bet this person could make a really solid blockbuster.
Sure.
But it's like I don't know. As a film, it's like going to Hot Topics. I'm so old. Where it's like, look how edgy we are, and it's like, you're corporate edgy, you know, like that's the feeling. Yeah, where they're like, look how unusual this film is, and I'm like,
it's on Hulu.
Yeah, it's all right, you know, like it's not Skinamarink, like it's not blowing my mind in a weird way. It's not like this incredible subversion of cinema. It's like, oh yeah, you did a thing, you did it okay.
Congratulations.
And I feel bad. I do feel bad because I really was excited for this movie, and I really wanted it to stand out more than it did. And maybe that's on me, you know? Like, I think for a lot of people, the reason why this movie worked is because there wasn't
zero expectations. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, that was the first round of Twitter. People going like, oh my God, did you see this? And the problem with me is I went into it after that hype.
Yeah, fair. So did I.
I'm thinking of that. Yeah, like that Last Voyage film that we just covered. That movie is a good example of it working on me, which is like that movie isn't particularly clever or amazing either, but it just executed it really well.
Yeah.
But again, it had a couple built-in things. They were on a boat. There are little things where it's like they didn't have to write around, why don't they leave, you know? So...
Yeah, and also Dracula's not an enigma. Like, his motives are pretty clear.
Exactly, yeah. It didn't feel as forced. Like, this just felt...
Yeah, so, like, when the guy gets away on the lifeboat and Dracula swoops out and get him, it's not like, well, why did he go after that guy? It's like, well, Dracula's not going to let anybody escape.
Yeah,
he's
exactly.
Dracula. He's not... Yeah, he's like, well, fuck that guy. Bleh.
Yeah, and I think this would have worked better. Like, to me, it was like, give it more rules. Give us an understanding of what the aliens are doing.
I don't need rules. It's just the
if they're trying to abduct her, for
there
example.
was such a it was the fact that there was such a wide spread of the different things it seemed like they were trying to do. Like, sometimes they're trying to abduct her, sometimes they're like combing through her shit, sometimes it seems like they're trying to eat her, sometimes it's like it was all over the map. So have a set beam have the idea that the alien ship can't really maneuver. Have a set beam in her yard and have every sequence be the aliens trying to drag her towards that beam. And then you go, okay, I know what they're trying to do. I know what they want. Like, have a very clear goal that you're like, okay, I know what she wants and I know what they want. And now let's do, like, Green Room. They're trying to get out. Patrick Stewart is trying to kill them. Got it. I don't even need them. I don't even need dialogue to know that. It's like aliens coming to abduct him. You'd think that would be a really simple rule, right? They're trying to abduct her. Period. Yeah, yeah.
Then have them try to abduct her. Like, that's what it comes down to. Like, when they put the little boog in her mouth, they get her in the beam, and I'm like, good. The beam starts throwing her around, and I was like,
why?
Yeah, why?
Why are we beating her up?
Yeah, and then they put the thing in her mouth, and I'm like, okay, so that's what they're trying to do. Interesting. And then she, like, tears it out a scene later, and I was like, okay, so that didn't go anywhere.
Is this the first time this has happened?
Yeah, so it felt like so much tap dancing, so much like we need to fill out 90 minutes. And so like those sequences, it was just like, what are we fucking doing? What does the aliens want? What is any of this? Yeah, I guess I have nothing else to say.
Yeah, I'm sort of out of things to say.
Yeah, I'm glad you enjoyed it more than me. Like, and I hope people enjoy movies.
Yeah, the movies, they're back.
They're back on Hulu.
On Hulu, brought to you by Disney.
Yeah, we have a Patreon.
We do.
Patreon.com/gamefullyunemployed. GAMEFULLY unemployed. You can go on there. For $5 a month, we have access to Tom and Jeff Watch Batman, Fox Mulder's a Maniac, Star Trek The Next Futurama, Spiel Boys. Those are all exclusive podcasts on there. We do some of them with the Small Beans. We also, for a little more, you can watch movies with us every Friday night. I don't think we'll watch this because I will be insufferable during any
viewing. I feel like
you
would. Yeah, I feel like you really would.
But yeah, check out our Patreon.
It'd be like watching a Civil War movie with a history professor.
I'm so sad. Like, you know when a movie's like, you don't like a movie and you feel like such a fucking wet blanket, you know, like where it's like, I wanna like this movie and I don't want to be fucking like, what?
Oh yeah. I felt that before.
Like this. Yeah.
We also have a store. Head over to gamefullyunemployed.com. You can find a link to our Teespring store. We have all kinds of cool original artwork and designs. You can get on t-shirts, mugs, stickers, posters, all sorts of things. So slap your gigantic gray alien peepers onto that.
Yeah, and your fucked up legs.
Yeah, your weird little finger toes. Your finger toes.
Yeah, going around. Why would they do that? Why? What?
To be freaky, Dave. To be freaky. Yeah.
They came from the freaky planet filled with fucked up
freaks where everybody needs to play the piano with their toes.
Yeah. Why a saucer? It's not like,
I don't know.
Space. Do you need to be aerodynamic in space?
It's just a saucer.
And that's not a note. Yeah, that's not a note for this movie. That's just aliens in general.
In general, aliens. Why the saucer?
Yeah. Why not a fucking? I don't know.
Like a cool rocket.
Do a Borg cube, you know, or a rocket. Yeah. Do like a big slab of paste, like a mushy. I want a mushy craft, like it's mushy, you know, like you want to pop it in your mouth, like
yeah, like it's mashed potatoes.
Yeah, mashed potatoes.
A mashed tater ship.